It's a big week for us here at Fort Nerd. As you know, on Saturday at 12:30 Eastern and 8 p.m. Eastern, we're running 2 charity streams, raising money for Jesse's Journey and Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy research. So we thought we wanted to do something special. So we're running 5 podcasts in 5 days, talking to some of the amazing people who are making this event happen. Today we're talking to Lauren Urban. She's the community manager of D&D Beyond and a member of their phenomenally popular stream. D&D Beyond is one of our title sponsors. They've donated 3 sourcebook bundles, which include everything you need to create a character on D&D Beyond. The total value of their donation is well above $1,000. And we couldn't do this type of event without them. I'm very excited to be chatting with Lauren today, and I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. But I also wanted to chat with you about a new sponsor who joined us, NorseFoundry.com. They've given us a number of metal dice sets, and they're amazing. I can't wait for you to see them. I look forward to chatting with you further. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Gary@fortnerd.com. Hopefully see you tomorrow as I talk to Rachel Seeley from Girls, Guts, Glory. Hey, Lauren, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm super happy to be here.
So, I'd like to ask you, what was your first experience with Dungeons and Dragons?
So I had my first experience way back in elementary school, back in 1980. And I was an indoor child. I was a geeky child. I was a musician even when I was growing up. And ironically enough, my parents bought the red box for me to try to help to make friends.
Okay.
And two things happened. That failed miserably. I kept asking people, "Oh, would you like to come play this game with me?" And I didn't really have any social skills when I was growing up. It took me a while to get used to that. And so I didn't have a lot of friends when I was growing up. I had a computer. Even in the 80s, my parents were tech people. So it was hard to find friends. And then the few who were interested, it was during the Satanic Panic. And so their parents went, "No, you can't play that. No." So really my experience with the red box was me going through the tutorial how to play adventure, which you could play by yourself, which was pick a character, and then it was kind of like a choose your own adventure, but it would tell you, roll this dice. And from what I remember, it was kind of a very basic dungeon crawl with a goblin encounter. It was super basic, and I must have played that through like 12 times, and I loved it, but I couldn't find anyone to really play with. Fast forward to college. I didn't have a true D&D experience, but one of the dorms that I was staying in every weekend, there was a Star Wars RPG LARP-ish game going on. And they would basically play Saturdays from like noon till midnight. They'd take over one of the common areas. Most of them would be in some sort of Jedi getup and lightsabers, and then they'd order pizza, and it was this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm a professional musician. I'm going to school for classical music. So Saturdays are gig days for me. So I could never join in, but I'd come back to the dorm post gig when they would be tired and be done with the pizza, and they would let me have some pizza. And then every once in a while, I'd like fill in for an NPC or something because they needed someone. And I desperately wanted to join,
Right.
but it was like, oh, I can't even get here until you're already 8 hours into this thing. So fast forward again, all the way till 4th edition was coming out. and two things had happened. They had announced that they were re-releasing a fourth edition version of the Red Box,
Right.
which hit my nostalgia super hard.
Yeah.
I got it over there. And podcasts were starting to be a thing, and Chris Perkins started doing the Acquisitions Incorporated podcast. This is back when it was just him and Jerry Holkins, and
Yeah.
it was the crew from Penny Arcade.
Right.
And they were playing fourth edition, but they were playing through it. And I loved listening to it. And I just moved out to Seattle. This was 2010.
Okay.
And so I had a couple friends, but no money, and it was just scraping by for a living. And they had the fourth edition version of Adventures League was going on. Go to a store, they'll hook you up with a DM and some players, and you can go play. And so that's what I did. Is I found my friendly local gaming store and I started to play.
Right.
And that crew that I ended up playing with, we played together for many years. Really, we only broke up recently because of just moving and everything going on. But that's how I really got started. So I had like a tiny little bit when I was young, but mostly it was fourth edition was my jam. Fourth
Right.
edition was how I cut my teeth.
Yeah, you know, when you said you got the red box in the 80s, this surprised me because, as you mentioned, that was the time of the Satanic Panic when D&D was very much not a popular thing amongst parents. So when you said your parents went out and bought it for you, I was surprised.
My parents, I love them dearly. They've been supportive and wonderful people. I'm very lucky to have like normal, happy childhood parents and everything. My dad is a psychologist and my mom worked as an educator. So both of them, and this is in the state of New York.
Right.
So way back even in the 80s, they were geeks who were also working in, as I said, we had a computer in my house back in the days and where it was 14.4 modems and nobody
Right.
knew what a computer was. And we would play Final Fantasy, the first one on the Nintendo,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we had game nights, and I would sit and watch Star Trek with my dad. So like we were geeky. So for them, D&D was they weren't thinking about the overreaction to the fact that there was a demon somewhere in the game. D&D was collaborative storytelling. D&D was a way to make friends, and
Right.
here I was spending my weekends playing on a computer or playing the oboe, and I can totally understand where they were coming from. And so it just, the world conspired against my parents when they were trying to be good parents.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. It sounds like I started around the same time as you did, although the Satanic Panic wasn't quite as big. When at the time I was playing, it wasn't a huge deal because my cousin introduced me to the game,
Yeah.
and our parents are immigrants, so they didn't really know what we were doing. They were very detached from what we were doing. So we didn't have the same, if it was going on then in the later 80s. So obviously, we're doing our stream on the 26th, but you guys at D&D Beyond do a stream as well. And but I'd like to ask you how you first got started with D&D Beyond.
Oh, I got started almost 2 years ago, just a couple weeks ago. My anniversary was just beginning of September, actually.
Congrats.
I had been working for Wizards of the Coast doing moderation for their Twitch channel.
Okay.
And this was when their Twitch had just spun up. I had DM'd a couple games on the channel, and then that was basically my job outside of music. Was I was doing moderation for these channels, because when you're moderating a Twitch channel for D&D, it's less about policing and more about being the answer person, because people come in and they want to know what's everybody's race and class and level, and what's going on and how many episodes are there. They're asking a lot more questions than you usually get when you're doing a Twitch stream of like Resident Evil, where most of the information's right there on the screen. So a lot of it was almost customer service. I was doing a lot of question answering, and Adam Bradford and Todd Kenrick at D&D Beyond were looking for someone to help take over their social media
Right.
and help do community management because at the time the team was still very small, and the two of them were doing, not only were they heading up D&D Beyond and doing all of the content for D&D Beyond and
Mm-hmm.
running the Twitch channel and everything else, but they were also doing the social media and the community management and everything.
Right.
And they saw me doing this and approached me. So I was
Oh, wow.
super lucky. Yeah, I got a fun email in the middle of the day one day of like, hey, are you going to be around? I'm going to be, it was Adam. He was asking, are you going to be around this afternoon? You want to come to Mox? And we had dinner and he told me what they were looking for. And I jumped in wholesale because it sounded like a lot of fun.
And based on your experience in the last 2 years, it seems like it was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always pain points, especially when it comes to the community
Yeah.
part of community management, because you want to do the best that you can for these people. I mean, these are people who are my friends and my players and my DMs and my family. And so when things go wrong, when mistakes are made, it hurts, and now that I'm in this very official position, I have a lot of responsibility to these people.
Yeah.
These are people who I care about and I want them to have a good experience, not just because I think D&D Beyond is awesome and it's, they might have paid for something, but also because like the easier I can make it for them to play D&D, the more D&D can be played.
Right.
So, but overall it's been fantastic. It's tiring in a way because there's been so much of a huge explosion of D&D,
Yeah.
which is amazing, but also as we're talking, there's 3 other Twitch streams, 2 podcasts, and a Discord that I could be paying attention to.
Yeah.
Like there's always something going on. So it's a little exhausting, but it's a family that I wouldn't give up for the world.
Right. So you said you got started doing D&D really in fourth edition with the start of the podcast, the Acquisitions Incorporated. But how do you think the game has changed over that time? Like what's different about D&D from when you started playing to now?
So much. I know there's a lot of people who played earlier than me who remember 3 and 3.5 or AD&D, and fourth edition gets a hard amount of criticism for the changes that they made to the
Mm-hmm.
game, and a lot of it is very warranted. What I enjoyed about fourth edition came from a video game background because the way that they had changed everything was very video gamey, which turned a lot of D&D players off. But
Yeah.
for me and a lot of my video game friends, it was incredibly easy to introduce this game to people.
Yeah.
The way that the powers were laid out, the way that the characters were set up. And because there was a little bit less emphasis on role playing, a little more on combat, it was a little easier to introduce this to like my WoW friends and my Halo friends and those my Wargamer friends,
Right.
and then add back in that role playing that I was craving. So when fifth edition came out, it was a joy for me because I think fifth edition does an excellent job of bringing back the mechanics that help with the role playing and
Right.
opening things up, but it was definitely a combat tone shift for me. But what I got out of it, and what I think also is a good thing, is I am a fan of theater of the mind for playing D&D. Like I think maps and minis are fun, and certainly I've played in a couple of games and where that's been amazing.
Yeah.
I got a chance to play with the crew over at D4. I guested on their show, and Dustin and Devin create some of the most amazing maps, and it's a joy to play on those maps. But for me, when I'm running, I tend to enjoy theater of the mind, and you can't do theater of the mind in fourth edition.
No.
It's impossible. But fifth edition, it's easy and fun and encouraged, and that's kind of I started DMing in fourth edition, but I really started to enjoy it in fifth edition because of that. So
Yeah.
I think that's the major shift has been the ease of focus of getting away from it having to be a battle game
Right.
and getting back to it being a role-playing game that has battle mechanics in it.
Yeah, and I think they've done a really effective job of sort of blending the editions together. Actually, I had a conversation about this with Chris Perkins at D&D Live last year about how my favorite Wizards of the Coast system is actually Star Wars Saga Edition.
Mm.
And I love what they did with that system, and it's what I wish fourth edition was. But there's a lot of similarities between Saga Edition and fifth edition in some ways. They streamline things, and I think that bringing that sort of seamlessly transitioning through all of these editions was not an easy task, but I think they managed to do it.
No, absolutely. And the few things that I think were brilliant in fourth edition that either they did bring over or they didn't are easy enough to pull. Like the bloodied mechanic, I still think is great. Minions, I think, are amazing, especially if you're running a high level game.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that they were doing in fourth that they didn't bring over, but you can very easily. And I still have friends that I brought into D&D in fourth edition that made the transition to fifth, because once they learned how to play, they were able to get into it because it felt more like the video games they were used to.
Right.
And then once they got used to it, the transition to fifth was a lot easier. So I have a lot of love and nostalgia for fourth edition that some people don't have, but I keep threatening some friends of mine that I'm going to run a fourth edition game for them one of these days. The pandemic needs to go away though, because I definitely need a battle map, because you can't do that game. All the powers involve moving, and
Yeah, I started in first. I played second. I played a lot of third. I was very active in Living Greyhawk. Tried fourth. It was fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to malign it, but I didn't play it. It didn't speak to me, and then heavily involved in fifth. So,
which I hear that a lot. People who were into D&D before fourth edition, that was such a change from what they were used to, and it wasn't what they were expecting or wanted or whatever. And so I'm very cognizant when I talk about my love for fourth. It's basically because that's where I started, and I still think fifth is a better edition and a more well-rounded one, and I would stick with fifth in a heartbeat. But I do understand the criticisms of those who came earlier. But yeah, I think fourth still has some brilliance involved, and I will defend it. I will continue to defend it.
And you'll use fourth as a cudgel for your friends when they give you a hard time. It's like, don't make me run a fourth edition game for you.
I have made that threat. Yeah.
So we're talking about the stream that we're running on the 26th, and I'll have a few questions about that. But I'd like to talk about D&D Beyond's stream, because I know you were featured on it, and one of our players in Quest for the Cure, B. Dave Walters, is also a cast member as well. Going back to starting the stream, what made D&D Beyond start the stream to begin with? What was the calculus behind the decision?
So our streaming in general, especially D&D games, it started almost about 2 years ago, actually. When I got brought on was also when they were starting our first show, which was called Heroes of the Veil, which ran for about a year, and then that morphed into a show called Beyond Heroes. It was mostly the same cast, and that's when B. Dave Walters came on. Right. He was a guest on our show for a while, and then he joined us on that cast. And then that show recently ended, and we had started up a new show with a new DM called Silver and Steel, and we kind of merged the two.
Okay.
And so that's where we are now, is with Silver and Steel. We just had our 22nd episode, but we've been streaming now. Like, the character that I've been playing for 2 years, even though we're only on our 22nd episode of Silver and Steel, because she was in all the other editions of this version of the show. Mm-hmm. I've been playing her for 2 years now. And B. Dave kind of the same way. But the original impetus was this. It was kind of the same as a lot of people who stream, which is, this is fun and we like doing it. It was also important for us to show that we're not just people making a product. We love this game, and this is the easiest way to show it, is to have a show and play D&D. Mm-hmm. It felt natural to want to connect with our community with a stream show, especially since there's been so many out there.
Yeah.
And in a little way, it's also an easy way to show off the thing that we love and are proud of. We all use D&D Beyond on the show. So it was kind of a mix of, this is something that we love. This is something that we want to do. This is something that's good for everybody to see, that we love D&D as much as we love making the tech behind the character sheets and everything. And then also being able to show this stuff off. So that was kind of the start of it. And then, just like any other D&D game, we just like playing together. So we just keep playing. So it has, especially in the last 6 or 7 months, that 2 hours of my life. And I've got some other games that I play in. Some are offline. Some are, I've got my podcast. For a little while, there were the 2 shows going at the same time. So I was lucky to have 4 hours of streaming. Those are some of my favorite points during the week.
Right.
And I am super lucky to be working for a company that I love. And, but those 2 hours are by far some of the best moments of my week. And I look forward to them. And it fulfills for me. I mean, I'm preaching to the choirs of D&D lovers out there, but also as a professional performer, it fills that void for me. I'm playing a game for people. I'm making entertainment for people. I'm hopefully making a few moments of entertainment for other people to enjoy. And that is fulfilling to me and to most of the other people on the cast as well. So there's a bunch of reasons why we wanted to do it. And now we can't stop because we're having too much fun.
And it's the second most watched D&D show next to Critical Role, right? Did I read
We're
that correctly?
up there. There's, Critical Role wins by a long shot.
Yeah.
And then there's like a nice core of us who have a good chunk of viewers. I haven't looked at those numbers recently, but yeah, our viewers, we're very, very fortunate to have a very large fan base and people in the chat and people who listen to the podcast. So that's also grateful.
Yeah, you're definitely in the top 5 for sure, which is great, because you guys seem to have such a good rapport with each other, and I think that's key to it. I think, obviously. So, what's the strangest thing that's happened to you or one of your fellow players during one of your D&D Beyond stream games?
Are you talking about real life people or characters? Because
why don't you do one of each?
Oh.
Yeah, do one of each, because I definitely want one of each.
Okay, so for real life people, I think the strangest thing, there was an episode of Beyond Heroes in where something went wrong with Todd's microphone. Todd Kenrick was the DM. And it was either his microphone or Zoom. We were talking before the show about tech issues.
Right. Yeah.
They just happen. Something went wrong and it dropped his audio like an octave. It basically, he became a bass. It removed all of the tenor, all of the upper ends of his vocal range, and he just sounded like it was amazing. And it just so happened that we were in a battle with hill giants. So the first time it happened, it was funny and it was wacky, and they said a few things. We were like, "Oh, say this." Here's a Fezzik line from Princess Bride. Here's every big voiced person we can think of. They reset the video, and it fixed it for a little bit, and then it came back, and it basically became, you might as well leave it, because he was still understandable. There was nothing wrong. It wasn't like they were slowed down.
Yeah.
They were just super low. And it was weird, and it's never happened since. We still don't know why, but the fact that it was during a hill giant battle, and so all the hill giants were like, it was like a voice modulation dream.
That's awesome.
This is the perfect thing. There's some clips, and then of course at the end we spend about 5 minutes with chat yelling out, say this, say this, say this. So it was one of those, it helped in the game. It happened in a game that was a little more lighthearted. We had just gotten out of a pretty in-depth, deep arc of angst and feelings. And so it kind of happened at the right time, because it was a fight with hill giants, but it was a little more lighthearted. So it was kind of the perfect timing for it to happen
Mm-hmm.
too. But it was funny. It was super funny. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That's the thing that comes to mind. That, to be honest, stuff happens, but a lot of the time we're a bunch of performers. We do our best to hide when things go wrong.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time it's gone from my brain, because like that's an obvious one because it ended up on stream. But the rest, I can't even think of anything else. As far as
Okay.
our characters are concerned, oh dear, it's been a wild ride for all of us. Yeah, all of our characters have lost body parts, have died. Uh, my I so the character that my through line is I play a dragonborn cleric named
Right.
Orkira Eldrix, and she her god died, and so for a while she didn't have a god. She was I was without powers and everything.
Right.
She spent an entire lifetime uh, in that situation. There was another point in where we got sucked into a bag that was its own world, and because it happened overnight, and she wears scale mail, so of course she wasn't wearing scale mail when she was sleeping. So we got trapped in this bag and essentially spent years and years and years of time. Like, it was only 2 or 3 episodes because we skipped time,
Right.
but a bunch of us ended up spending years like traveling and stuck in this one room. And my character was in a nightgown the whole time. So I have fan art of my character in a nightgown. Pants became a thing. She switched gods pretty kind of in the middle of the first season of the show, which was weird and fantastic and amazing. She's been mutated. She is no longer a normal Dragonborn, because in fourth edition, Dragonborn are just they're essentially lizard people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lizard folk race, but they don't have tails or wings or anything like that. And she got hardcore mutated. We thought she was gonna die, and instead she grew wings and spikes and a tail, and then she got mutated later. So she shows up places and people don't know how to react to her. We just played a game yesterday and where we entered a town, and it was the first time she'd been there. And
Right.
this has now been, for her, it's been decades of living like this, because we've had some time jumps and there's been time in between seasons. So
Mm-hmm.
she's spent more time as this weird dragon looking creature with wings than she was when she was born. So she's kind of used to it. And she's also used to showing up and having people react to her in a weird way. So that happened. And it was kind of this eye rolling, all right, I'll keep the guy distracted so that the rest of the team can go off and do their thing. Yeah. Um, I've been fortunate enough to have my character guest star, as I said, on D4,
Yeah.
and so there's been there was a moment where she spent 6 years in a bag off screen, and so I left. We ended a game, and I went and guest starred on D4. And at the end of D4, me and one of the other characters from D4 got sucked into a bag, and he got spat out 6 years later. And I showed up on my show the next week, and it was 6 years later for me. So I had to explain to everybody because I looked different again. So it's been weird, but I would argue it's been D&D. Like, I don't think anything that I've said, as wonky as it is, like if you talk to anybody who's had a 2-year campaign, I think all their characters will be, I did this and this happened and this happened. And yeah, it's been a ride.
Yeah, if you play long enough, weird stuff happens. My friend and I played two brother characters, and when we first introduced the characters, he introduced his character, and the first time I played mine, he's like, "Oh, I'm 7 feet tall," and I'm like, "Well, I'm 7 feet 1 centimeter tall. Meet my short, ugly brother," and so that's been sort of the running joke. And it's just it goes on from there. But the reason I mentioned it is because we participated in an AL module where we had to fight each other. So it's like this grudge match that's been building for 17 levels because he's the shorter, uglier, less intelligent brother. Hopefully he watches this because he knows who he is.
He knows. He tells everybody that this is my taller, uglier, less intelligent brother.
Exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about the stream because for the second year in a row, D&D Beyond is our title sponsor for a Squad Up and Jesse's Journey event supporting Duchenne. So first, thank you so much for your generous donation of the sourcebook bundles and the dice. We're definitely going to make good use of that for the viewers of our streams and our sponsors. But second, you as D&D Beyond is very active philanthropically. It's not just us. There's a number of causes that you've supported. So why is D&D Beyond so committed to supporting philanthropy as a corporate policy?
Uh, I think it is a corporate policy, but it's also just a personal policy because we all just want to be able to help.
Right.
It's been a joy to see D&D streams in general. But there's also been like Jasper's Game Day and all kinds of ways in where D&D has been used to help raise money for charity. And it being able to help with that, like that feels right when we are a part of a community that plays a game that is all about shared community.
Mm-hmm.
D&D is all about being heroes. And yeah, there's like the outlier games of we're going to be the villains or we're going to be anti-heroes or whatever, but in the end it's about uh, there's always a little bit of this is kind of what I wish I could do this in the world. And when groups get together to use that to do something good in the world,
Mm-hmm.
it it feels very right. And it feels like it feels impossible not to help. Like this makes too much sense. Here are people being their D&D characters in real life. They're trying to help people in real life. And so being able to offer in any way that we can something that is going to inspire more donations or more people to watch or more people to spread the word, I think it's a no-brainer for us. It's just the right thing to do.
Well, and I appreciate that because, we're obviously working hard to get as many eyeballs on the stream and
Listen,
raise
you're doing
money.
all the hard work. I just offered a couple codes and said, "Yay, you're awesome." Like that's the other thing. Like you're going to thank us, but you do all the hard work.
Well, it's I don't say it flippantly, but it's we're raising money for this disease, and it's really challenging for families, and it feels to me like the least we can do to give them a helping hand and to give them some hope that we're going to hopefully find a cure for this awful disease that really does tear families apart. So D&D is what I can do. I'm not a doctor. I can't do research, but I can roll some dice and bring some great people together, and hopefully we have a good show and people are encouraged to donate lots of money, and we can sort of make that goal of defeating Duchenne a reality. So
You got B Dave, you'll be fine.
yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be. I'm so excited, and that actually leads naturally into my next question. So obviously, I know we talked about it a little bit that you're gonna try and tune in on the 26th because we've got the two games. One's at 12:30, 9:30 your time AM, and 8 o'clock and 5. And we've been able to get together an amazing cast. We've got Ali Ganino and Rachel Seeley from Girls Guts Glory. We've got AJ Fry, he's a Canadian host. We've got B. Dave Walters, and we've got Ed Greenwood, who obviously is the creator of the Forgotten Realms. And I, of course, decided that I'm going to write an adventure in the Forgotten Realms for Ed Greenwood. So this is how it's worked out. So as somebody who is you sort of know who's going to be in the cast, and you sort of know what we're going to be doing. As somebody who's watching it, what is most interesting to you? What would you be most excited about to see in this stream with everybody who's participating?
Oh. See, for me, when I turn into any D&D stream, whether it's a charity stream or a regular live stream or a campaign or a one shot, the reason I like watching streams personally, and I think everybody's a little different, it's the interaction between the characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's how the people interact, and I include the DM in that because they're playing characters too. So how these people interact with each other and do the do the work to make the shared storytelling. And so for me, the more interaction that there is, the more, if it's a serious game, those kind of serious role playing moments. If it's a lighthearted game, the more jokes people are riffing off of each other. If it's a bloody death match of level 20 epicness. It's all right, how much epicness can you bring to the table? And can you help your teammates? So for me, the more interaction there can be, the happier I am as a watcher. And that kind of spills over into my DMing when I'm streaming, especially if I'm streaming a one shot.
Yeah.
I tend to veer towards what allows my players the most time to talk with each other in and out of character. What inspires them, what gives them room to just breathe and have fun, and gets me out of the way as much as possible, because that just lets them interact. So yeah, it's the more these, because you've got a great cast, and those people are a bundle of energy, and I don't think it's going to be that hard for them to have fun. So that's what I'm tuning in for, is watching them have fun.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that everybody's been so generous with their time, and we're really excited to see what everybody's got in store. And I've got a few characters that have been sent to me, and the thing that's been most delightful for me in interacting with all of these amazing players is how excited they are to participate. And I got an email from somebody yesterday, like, this is my character, this is who she is, this is what she does, this is how I'm going to play her. And if even a quarter of the enthusiasm that they've shared with me outside of the stream translates to the stream, I think it's going to be incredible. So
Absolutely.
I'm really excited. So we're not just running the streams on Saturday, though. We're also running a D&D Adventures League Epic on Sunday. And as you know, on Sunday night, we are doing an extra long Talon and Claw streaming session for Sea of Thieves. And one of those sourcebook bundles will be available for a lucky donor who donates to us. And I don't know what we're going to do yet, but I know that it's going to be epic. So our ship is called the SS Failboat, which gives you an idea of how our missions usually go. And it's myself and Anthony from Talon and Claw, and Jake and GM Travis from Twitter. So I'm wondering how should we approach the pirate stream? How can we engage people in our quest for the cure? What do you think we should do?
I mean, the easy answer is you go be pirates and you go lean into the pirate RP. But saying that, my reaction to myself is to go for a completely different role playing as you're playing. Like, how wonderful would it be if you show up to a Sea of Thieves stream for charity, and of course everyone's expecting pirates, and instead you're all Victorian English. And instead of being pirates, you're the one ship that's the British Navy. Or you're the Spelljammer ship of Githyanki warriors, or whatever you want to do. And it's just a completely opposite of what you'd expect. And otherwise you're just playing Sea of Thieves, but you're all, mind flayers. We lost our ship and now we have to sail on the seas, and this is not as much fun. Where is the elder brain? Yeah, something that's what I would do. I would totally ham up the weirdness of why you a bunch of pirates, but you sound like mind flayers.
Nice. Yeah, I'm talking to the guys a little later, and I'm definitely gonna run that by them.
It is yours to steal. Go for it.
One of the I will provide you full credit on the night of. One of the things that we do is one of our channel point giveaways that people can purchase is I tend to write shanties, and I write parody songs to existing songs. So while I have you, is there a song that you would like me to parody during the stream that I can work on for you for Sunday night?
I mean, the obvious answer is the D&D Beyond theme song. I mean, go for Sam Riegel, go for the top. Why not?
Okay.
You've got your perfect sea shanty, your hurdy-gurdies and supplies. I don't know, but I think you do that.
Okay. I can. I will make my best efforts to craft something. Last week I did "Paint It Black" by the Rolling Stones,
Ooh,
and
nice.
yeah.
Although all right, hold on. I have to interrupt for a second
Okay.
because I want to hear that and I think that's awesome. But the Westworld version of Painted Black, have you heard that?
I
Did you
haven't.
watch West? Okay.
I watched season one, but I'm not caught up.
Okay. So it was in season one, but there's an orchestral version of Painted Black that happens in season one. I won't go into details for those who haven't seen it. You can look it up online. Just look up Painted Black Westworld. It's amazing. It is I it is very rare to hear orchestral versions of rock songs that actually work for a bunch of different reasons I'm not going to go into because music theory,
Yeah.
but oh, this is super good. Also bassoon solo because why not? Why not rock bassoon solo? So yes, definitely, but I do want to hear your sea shanty version. And so after this I'm going to have to go take a listen.
Yeah. It was. It worked out. I I don't know. Yeah, take a listen and you let me know on Twitter. Let me know on Twitter how I did. So I think
Also tell the Talon and Claw crew I said hi.
I absolutely will.
They are also local to the Seattle area, and they make fantastic stuff. And I am excited about my whiskey dice vault that will be coming soon.
Yes, he's been sending pictures of those, and unfortunately at the time I wasn't in a position to get one. And he's been
Mm.
sending pictures, and I'm like just salivating at all of these dice vaults. I did order one. My girlfriend ordered me a dice rolling tray, and I got a dice vault to match. So I
Nice.
do have that going for me, which is nice. So
Nice.
so the last thing that I'd like to ask you, the big sort of final thought I'd like to pick your brain on, is when you're writing an adventure, specifically for Dungeons and Dragons, and sorry, not but would you write it differently for a group that you're running at home and a stream?
Yes.
What would the difference be to you?
Oh, you want details? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a show.
Yeah, it is. So I would say the flippant answer is yes. The long answer is no with caveats. So the the thing you have to remember about a stream or a podcast, anything that's going to be consumed as entertainment, is there are things you would like to keep in mind that will increase the entertainment value that aren't necessarily, hey, I would normally do this, but I'm not going to. They're not giant changes
Mm.
to an adventure that you're running. They're just things to keep in mind. I think it's important to have a much more clear through line of a plot. Um, for me personally, when I'm running a game, either for stream or for my podcast, uh, I am very careful that my players always feel like they have something to grab onto. It's a little easier in a home game when you've got all the time in the world, when you're not having to worry about being entertaining for other people, to hang out in town for a while, just kind of, seeing in the sights, um, to be lost, to be unsure what you want to do next and spending a weekend at a bar. That is super fun. And it's not that that can't happen in a streamed game, but I think it's really important that those are few and far between,
Yeah.
and that the players always have an idea of something to do next. And even if they ignore it, even if they say, well, we've got this plot thread to follow, but whatever, we're going to go in this direction. Having a continued storyline that they can continue to do, so there isn't the moment of, well, what do we do now? Because that's the hard part in a stream.
Yeah.
No one likes that. The players don't like that. The characters don't like that. The audience doesn't like that. When you're at home and there isn't an audience, when that happens, it's not a big deal. Maybe the answer is you go grab a snack and we just talk it over. Well, what do we want to do next? But on a stream, and when it's a performative game, I think it's really important that there's always an answer to that, even if that doesn't end up being the answer. So it's not that I'm going to write my adventures differently. It's that I try my best to make sure when the question comes up, what do we do now? That there's at least that moment that someone says, well, we can always blah.
Right.
And so if it's a one shot, the plot for me needs to be super obvious at the beginning, and there's no, I tend to just give them the plot right away. So there's no, well, let's meet each other and hang out in a bar. No, you're going here to do this.
Yeah.
Now chat. And then for my longer stream stuff, the weaving in enough stuff so that my players always have an answer to the what do we do now is super important.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. And the two adventures they're one shots, but they're connected. If somebody misses one and doesn't see one of them, they're not going to miss anything. But I'm hoping that I'm going to put enough Easter eggs that the connections will be readily obvious, and that people who do watch both will be rewarded for watching both because a grander story has emerged. And we shall see to the degree I succeed at that noble endeavor on the 26th.
And your players, it's a collaborative effort, and they might not know what those Easter eggs are, but just like any D&D game, like I said, you give them a plot and they might say nah and go in this direction. Now, most of the time when you're doing a performative game like that, players are pretty good about buy-in. I hear a lot of tales of DM sitting down at a home game. My husband actually had this exact thing happen. I've crafted a story. I've crafted a whole campaign, and within 5 seconds, my players scrapped it all. I had 3 billion things for them to do in Waterdeep, and they decided to go to Candlekeep. That kind of thing.
Right.
In a stream game, everyone has a little more impetus to buy in.
Yeah.
So when you as a DM present things, it's part of the social contract in any D&D game. But then when you're also in a stream, it's the orchestral metaphor of I've been hired to play in this orchestra and you've given me a sheet of music. I should play the sheet of music. Now I'm going to play it my way, and I'm going to enjoy playing with these people. And maybe the performance is going to be different than what you expected. And maybe for an encore, we're going to play Painted Black. But I'm agreeing to sit down and play the piece of music. So I don't think you have too much to worry about. You got some excellent players with you who are going to want to play along.
Yeah, I'm really excited. In fact, I don't want to reveal too much, but I had a conversation with one of the players last night. I did a similar promotional podcast with one of them, and I'm like, I just want to tell you everything right now. How am I not doing that? And so I had to fight the urge to give away too many plot points, but I look forward to sharing it with everybody on the 26th. So, Lauren, thanks so much for chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks.